Hi, I'm Albert Pujols. Kids cannot be healthy without good dental health. The American Dental Association Give Kids Smile program wants to help. Visit our website and give kids a smile.
Hello, I'm Steve Cohen, and this is Congressional Report. Been very busy with this 111th Congress, and back home, it's a Monday. Mondays are busy days in the office, and I'm here with Randy Wade, my district director, who runs the Memphis office down on the 3rd floor of the Federal Building. Randy, been a busy Monday, isn't it?
What did you say, Congressman? A lot of work, but it's good.
Every Mondays are busy.
Every Mondays are very, very busy. Mondays, Tuesdays, the whole week, really. I mean, we get a lot of calls on a lot of issues that we really try and help people with.
As an example of things which people would call the office on, so people know who are watching if they need help, what different issues that do you and the staff deal with?
The bulk of it is veteran affairs, veteran issues, SSI, Social Security. Those are our top issues. Medicare. We're getting a lot of calls from issues even as it relates to the city. We basically, in those kinds of issues, what we do is serve as a compass and steer them to the right departments in city or county government.
And then home foreclosures, people try to help people with that?
Definitely home foreclosures, because we got several groups, NACA, that assist us with that. Matter of fact, Memphis Area Legal Services, they do a great job in assisting our office with home foreclosures.
This morning, the first thing we did is we went over to the Cook Convention Center, and I was so thrilled. There were 2,000 young people who are going to get to work this summer on a summer youth jobs program because of the monies that we got the city through an earmark last year and the monies in the American Recovery and Investment Act that we voted on and that we assured was going to have summer youth job programs in there. That was a beautiful crowd.
Yeah, that was great to see. You know, and you have to really commend Ms. Sarah Lewis and her staff and coordinating that, putting all of that together. I mean, that was a lot of hard work. It really was. I mean, her staff is to be commended.
Now, she said she's got more people than jobs. She still needs some jobs, I think. She's got the young people. And people, it's Ms. Lewis at City Hall, but also Mr. Russell.
Oh, yeah. Exactly right. That always basically happened. You know, Ms. Lewis always go beyond, extend herself beyond the call of duty. But I like to say if there are business that's in the community that have jobs available, they need to contact Ms. Lewis' office.
Or they can contact our office.
Either our office.
We'll help direct them to either Ms. Lewis or to Mr. Russell and the WIN program.
Right.
And the number to call is 544-4131. 544-4131 is the number of the Congressional office downtown, and we'll try to help you with that.
And you can tell them to ask for Travis Green because Travis is coordinating with Sarah Lewis' office.
Travis Green in our office.
Right.
Retired, young retired Marine.
Yeah, young, right.
Yeah. And he works on Veterans Affairs with Marzie.
Marzie, and of course, Ms. Linda Archer, she handles passports and immigration issues. And
Visa.
As well as our grants person, Elise Addington. She's a new addition, but she's doing an outstanding job. She deals with information related to Pell Grants, all of that in terms of education. It's a great job.
And all kind of grants for community programs, and Willie Henry's involved in much of what we do.
Yeah, Willie is really the crutch, so to speak, on Social Security. He's definitely an expert on Social Security, SSI issues, and he does a lot of things as it relates to coordinating with the Med on issues of folk who do not have, constituents rather, who do not have insurance.
TennCare issues.
Yeah, TennCare issues, exactly right. So
the meetings we have on Monday mornings are so varied, and today we met with some folks on World AIDS Day and efforts to educate the community, particularly the inner city community, which has such a high increase in HIV infection, and about how to have non-risky sex or not to have sex,
right.
whichever.
So,
and to avoid that and to deal with people who have HIV, which Friends for Life does, but also others, the Jabril World Institute people were with us today, George Tillman and others. And then we have people come in on all kind of community issues. The Red Cross is in need of help. The Red Cross, which services tornado victims, victims from the hurricane areas when they are evacuated up here, and fire victims of fire, et cetera, is having a funding crisis. And we hear from so many groups that are having trouble with funding because of the downturn in the economy. Contributions have fallen off. And the Red Cross is cut back on their staff, and the Red Cross needs contributions and help.
Yeah.
So we met with Buck Lewis and the head of the Red Cross there this morning, and it's just an assortment of issues. But the thing I constantly hear on a regular basis from people that come in the office is neighborhoods need help. Whether it's North Memphis and Miss Sarah Carpenter, who came in today, pleading for help in Hyde Park, and North Memphis, which has been kind of left behind, blight money to be used to effectively help neighborhoods, infant mortality programs that we're working on, because that's such a sore in the community, crime problems, Stevie Moore and what he does. There's just so many community issues, and we have the need for these in our community.
Yeah, I think, Congressman, as you and I discussed on the way over here, that the organization, the grassroots organization, I refer to them on ground zero. The money is coming. The money is coming to for example, the University of Memphis, Operation Safe Communities. But those monies, when it relates to gangs and violence in our community, it does not reach ground zero. It does not reach the person who are the people in the organization who's on the front line. And that's something that we might want to consider. The folk who are actually getting the grant money, the federal dollars, we might want to send a letter or something out to discuss with them and see just how the money is being spent. That's something we might want to consider.
Well, we were out this past weekend, I think it was at New Enoch Baptist Church, and the pastor there had a second chance program. And that's a program where he's trying to help people in the community stay out of a cycle of crime, but the monies aren't getting down to him.
Exactly, and that's when you say communities, and that's the reason why you hear the community. They read about it in the newspapers, they see it on the blogs that the monies are coming, but it's just not reaching ground zero.
A lot of people, last week we had a lot of important stuff happen in Congress. Since we've done a show on our congressional activities, we passed a credit card bill, which would go into effect, some of it immediately on notices, some of it not for about another 9 months, but it'll guarantee that people don't get their credit card rates changed on them, except without certain notice requirements, that the balances not be subjected to the higher interest rates if it goes up, that you have to have at least 21 days of notice of your bill and the time that it's due. There's certain other reforms we had in that credit card bill. We've done some bills on home mortgages and starting to get some money down to help people with their mortgages save up to $2,000. That was the bill signing. I was at the White House, and President Obama, he made an error. He doesn't make many. He said it was like a $2,000 tax increase, and he stopped it to tax cut.
Right.
But people can save $2,000 on their mortgages through this program. We're still trying to work on some other programs on home mortgages. Right.
I think when you talk about credit, it even now is going beyond the credit card issue. Now, since the economy has caused people to lose their jobs and people can't meet their bills, and their ratings are beginning to drop. And now when they apply for jobs, Congressman, they're using credit as a prerequisite in most cases to hire people, and that's something we need to look at.
Michael Fulton in the Washington office, and you and I have been researching that and continually involved to see if there's possible legislation there.
Right, and that would be good, but that's something that we really need to follow up on as well.
One thing you stay on me about is T.C. Jones and Sharp Manufacturing.
Oh,
and what a surprise. T.C. not related to Van Jones. I'm walking from my office in Longworth on over to the Capitol to vote or make a 1 minute or whatever, and a man stops me named Van Jones. He stops me and tells me, "Congressman, you spoke and you were the star at our conference last year in Memphis on the 40th anniversary of Dr. King's death on environmental concerns." And I said, "Thank you." And I started thinking, the 4th of April last year was so busy, and I was with John Conyers, et cetera, et cetera. And the man stopped me and he said he went to Jackson Central Mary High School, His father was from Orange Mound. He went to UT Martin, and then he'd been to Yale Law, been on the West Coast, and now he is President Obama's top guy on greening jobs, green jobs, environmental jobs. So I thought about it. We talked, spoke. He gave me, I got his assistant's card, because he didn't have one. Walked on about 20 more feet, and the brain turned on again, and I went, oh yeah. I remember it was a national conference. I yelled, Cook Convention Center.
Right.
He said, you got it. And then I turned him on to you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Matter of fact, right after you turned him on to me, I called the White House, and I talked with, he wasn't in, he was on a flight on his way to Florida. But I talked with his assistant, Miss Dana Highland.
That's it, Dana.
Dana Highland, right, and gave her some information related to what the Sharp people were trying to do, and they wanted me to be more detailed, which I'm waiting on Mr. Jones to get that information to me so I can forward it back to the White House. And hopefully we can, and they have already committed in terms of serving as our compass, getting us to the right place. Also, hopefully, a meeting with the Secretary of Energy. So we're working it. We really think
Sharp's looking at as much as 7,000 jobs here doing solar panels.
Right. They want to be, from my understanding, they want to be the manufacturer of solar panels that will be distributed around the world, really.
Be great to come out of Memphis, and that was just fortuitous. You know, you think things happen in a serendipitous manner so many times. And going to that conference, we had a busy weekend that weekend, but I remembered that conference. It was national in scope, and I agreed to do it. And once I got there, and it was the Cook Convention Center room, similar to the one today for the Summer Youth Jobs Program, might have been the same room, was full, and great young kids, but young people, but there were very few from Memphis. And so it's one of those things you do kind of in your representative capacity of welcoming them. But I gave them a stem winder. Yeah. And so happened, who would have thought that President Obama's guy on the environment was going to be in that room, and it gives us a connection.
And his father happened to be from Orange Mound.
Right.
Congressman, let me throw you a straight ball. You brought the issue up with the NBA, all right? And I support you on that issue. I think it's a good issue. And, go into details in your train of thought, I believe, as it relates to coming straight out of high school and going into the NBA.
I wrote a letter to Commissioner David Stern that suggests that the rule that exists today, that National Basketball Association players have to go to be 19 years of age and have spent either a year in college or a year out of high school, either in Europe or in the developmental leagues, before they can go in the NBA, suggested that rule ought to cease. And they ought to let players such as the Kobe Bryants, the LeBron Jameses, the Dwight Howards, the Rashard Lewises, the Dwight Howards, I might have mentioned him, but the players that have gone straight into the NBA and been so successful, that they should be allowed to do that. I believe that because these young men have an opportunity to make a goodly amount of money for themselves and their families, and many times they have families, and families not just children and or wives, but parents and grandparents and siblings that they could support. And a year out of their career, and their career, I think the average career may be 8 or 10 years, some may be 15, but that's a year out of 8 or 10 of their prime years. That's a lot of money to take away from a young man, and if he has the talent, he ought to be able to apply himself. You can go in the military and serve in Afghanistan, Iraq, or wherever when you're 18.
True, right.
You can sign a contract. You can buy a gun. You can play professional baseball. You can play professional hockey, tennis, golf. You can be an entertainer like Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, and go straight from Humes to Ed Sullivan stage. You don't have to go out to the University of Memphis and do a year out there. And it's all right. Only basketball and football. And football's got some size requirements. All right, I'd like to mention a few things about how this came about. Jonathan Godfrey, one of the aides to John Conyers, during the town hall meeting we had in April around the anniversary of Dr. King's assassination this year, mentioned to me the idea of such a bill. And at first I kind of thought, well, let me think about it, Jonathan. It's something we might think about, but is it that pertinent? And the more I thought about it, the more I saw the age discrimination issue. I've always been in my entire career, and it will continue to be, against all forms of discrimination. And that's why the ACLU gave me their Bill of Rights Award back in 1992 and continue to get those type of recognitions. Age discrimination, even on the low end, is age discrimination. In New York State, where a lot of these players play, it's a law. You can't discriminate based on age. In some other states, there are laws, and there have been court cases on discrimination when it's people 25 years of age, 30 years of age, younger sounding people, et cetera. It's an evolving part of the law, and it's an age discrimination issue. So I started looking at it more. I was in Louisville in early May, and I saw Al Harrington, one of the first players to go straight from high school to the pros. And I talked to Al about it. He gave me some good ideas and some good arguments. So we decided to introduce the bill at the time of the NBA Finals because of the fact that Kobe and LeBron were foreseen to be the two stars of the NBA Finals. Well, LeBron didn't make it. Dwight Howard did, just as preeminent a star in the NBA and a person who went straight from high school, like Amari Stoudemire, like Kendrick Perkins, who signed with Memphis but went straight to the NBA. So that was the timing. As far as the issue in my interest, it's age discrimination. As far as my interest, as you all know, and Josh Pastner's show bellies up to this one, I love Memphis basketball, have for 50 years, am a strong fan. Fact. And I think this hurts the student athlete, the Willie Kemp, who has to sit back a year or even 2 years behind. As much as we loved him, and it was the rules, and we should have had him, that was the rules, but Derrick Rose and Tyreek Evans could have gone straight to the NBA. At least Derrick Rose could have. And Willie Kemp wouldn't have sat on the bench, and he's a student athlete. But that's another issue. It didn't happen because of the University of Memphis, and we think the University of Memphis, and have no reason to believe that the University of Memphis is not going to come out of this with any sanctions, because we have no reason to believe they knew anything about any faulty SAT or that there was a faulty SAT. But nevertheless, some people said, oh, you did this because of the University of Memphis. No, this was going to be done because of the age discrimination issue. And that's why we pursued it. And it's gotten a lot of national attention. I'd say 80% at least of the sports columnists and pundits agree that it's an age discrimination issue. Quite a few lawyers do. And we may have hearings, we may have a bill, we may just use the bully pulpit of the United States Congress.
Just one other point. The way I see it, and you can help me out with this, I think, first of all, you have to ask the question, why was the rule there? And I just personally think that owners did not want to invest into a young man that's coming out of high school straight on into the NBA. I think that it's an area where they wanted to see what the player panned out to be what they suspected him to be anyway. So I think it's a safety net for the owners. Now, that's my own personal opinion.
Well, that's definitely it, Randy. And David Stern basically said that at the NBA Finals right before the first game. He was asked about this. And David Stern, who I met at a Grizzly game, he's a very bright man. I have respect for him. But the commissioner said that, he said, this has nothing to do with the NCAA. It has nothing to do with college. It has nothing to do with social conditions. The player can go to any type of school, NAI or NCAA, can go to Europe, which a couple of players have, Jennings out of California, and another guy, I think his name's Tyler. But some guys have gone straight to Europe, which is more difficult for them to adjust going to Europe out of high school and spending a year than it would be in the NBA in America. But it doesn't have to do with that. It has to do with, or going in the developmental league, which the NBA has. He said this is strictly a business decision. We want to observe these players, potential players, for another year at another level before we choose them. So what you got is the NBA deciding we want a year to make these players perform before we choose, so we can make a better selection and not hire somebody who might not pan out. Well, that's the owner saving money and some of the players who might or might not pan out not making money. And to restrict the players who are going to pan out, and they all knew Kobe was going to make it from Jump Street. They knew the same thing with LeBron and Howard and Amari Stoudemire, et cetera. It's not fair to those players, and it would be beneficial to some of those kids who could get it to go ahead and get in the NBA immediately. And if the NBA makes a mistake with some of them, a few of them didn't make it, they've got some real money for a while. I got a few phone calls or letters, one from Lynn Elmore, the great star at the University of Maryland in the early 70s, NBA star and Harvard Law graduate and lawyer, and one from Coach Paul Hewitt at Georgia Tech. And really, Paul Hewitt responded via the internet on a blog, and I called each, Coach Hewitt at Georgia Tech and Lynn Elmore. I admire both these men greatly, and they have the right concern, as many people do who disagree with the rule, for the young people. every young person should, if they can, try to go to college and achieve and do the best they can with their education. And we've certainly done that with Hope Lottery scholarships and try to give the incentive to young people here to get a 3.0 and to go on to college and encourage those that can to do, and the state to help pay for it, which they can and will in Tennessee. Unique thing. But if a young man is just adamant about not doing it, you can't force him to do it. And if he can make that money and have 4 years of multi-million-dollar contracts, he ought to have that right. What Lynn Elmore feels and Coach Hewitt, and I agree with them in their idealism, is that young people might think early on that they're going to go to the NBA and be a Kobe or a LeBron and not study and spend too much time on the basketball court. And because players could go straight to the NBA, that they don't concentrate on their studies thinking they have to study to go to school, and then go to school, and for those that aren't going to be NBA players, have that opportunity to have an education. I agree with that. But the one-and-doners are going to still give the people the idea that you can go do a semester in school and get out, and they're still going to be playing for the NBA. You've either got to have a system which would be unfair and discriminatory to require the kids to go to college for 4 years or 3 years. That's not going to happen, even though Commissioner Stern said something about going to 2 years. Paul Hewitt coached Thaddeus Young, a Memphis graduate of Mitchell High School, for a year, and Thaddeus Young, who I'm a fan of, went straight to after 1 year at Georgia Tech, to the Sixers. And this was his second year, and I think he averaged 15.5 a game. He was one of the top players ever to come out of Memphis and play in the NBA successfully. Not Penny Hardaway yet, but he's had a good second year. And he went to Georgia Tech, and the odds, he may go back to University of Memphis or some school and eventually graduate, but he only went to school, and he said he wanted to go straight to the pros.
Very smart young man.
He was a good student at Mitchell, but he said he wanted to go to the NBA immediately. Well, he got a semester in college at Georgia Tech, but he also lost out on probably $4 million that first year, which could have helped a lot of people in his family. And he can't make up that $4 million. I'm going to call Thaddeus this afternoon and talk to him about his thoughts on the system, as I have some other players. But that was where Coach Hewitt was coming, and Lynn Elmore. They were thinking about the young people. They really think there needs to be more paternalism, kind of in a Bill Cosby way, which I concur with, but that at the same time, you shouldn't have age discrimination and stop what they call the prodigies from being able to play immediately. And nobody's better spoken to the media and more poised and obviously educated than Kobe and LeBron. They do a great job on their media interviews. But while we did that and got that issue out there, and I hope that we have some traction with it, some people said, well, shouldn't you be dealing with other issues? And the fact is, that same day that came out, I met with a Turkish member of parliament and talked about the change in Turkey since the AKP parties come in, the requirement of women to wear the veil, her fear that's becoming more of an Islamicist society, getting away from Ataturk's principles of secular democracy and getting to have more of an Islamist perspective, turning more towards the East and Russia and less toward NATO and the West. I went to a foreign policy briefing with the foreign minister of Turkey on issues there, and the Armenian issue came up, and that was discussed. Met Mr. Jones. In fact, I was leaving a veterans meeting of the Veterans Caucus going up to make my 1 minute on the NBA when I ran into Van Jones working on solar. The veterans issue, Secretary Shinseki was there, and I got up and made an address to him and gave him some papers about the need to have a top administrator here at our VA, where we don't have an administrator now, the previous administrator. There were some problems in the firing of Dr. Orndorff, and that administrator left. We need a strong administrator. We needed the best care possible for our veterans. Stress we don't need HMO type of care, but we need care that delivers, and that we need to have the best medical staff possible. And I asked him to make spot checks on VAs around the country, on these hospitals, to make sure they're doing their job. So we went from, that day started with a meeting with John Conyers on some bills, and we talked about universal health care. We talked about some other legislation that we had up. Went to a meeting with Congressman Harold Ford Sr. and Gene Holcomb, the chairman of the board of the Med, Mr. Watts, the executive at the Med, and Ms. Monica Wharton, the attorney at the Med, on some issues with the Med and their funding problems and ideas on trying to get maybe Trauma One centers that serve an area that border another state and get something together with those other states. And I've talked to John Yarmouth in Louisville, to Lacey Clay in St. Louis, to Manuel Cleaver in Kansas City, and Russ Carnahan, who also is part of St. Louis, about joining some kind of a group. Mostly it's river towns, to try to look for Trauma One centers to get special federal funding. We're working on getting a meeting with Sebelius at the HHS on this issue, and possibly Nancy DeParle in the White House. That was all in part of that day. We had the Tennessee Conservation League come up and meet with us on issues concerning greening, better emissions controls for our automobiles, our mileage standards, and voted and made addresses and talked about the supplemental, which is a major issue because the supplemental's got the IMF tied in it now. But I voted against the supplemental the first time. The administration and the leaders in my party have talked to me about supporting the supplemental as it comes from the Senate, which I don't believe I can do, but I have a requirement and need to have an open ear on these issues and to listen, and also to give my perspective on the situation in Afghanistan. Went to a briefing with, it was really kind of a salon one night, with David Sanger, the New York Times chief correspondent in Washington, on the problems that Obama has inherited and the difficulties he's got in so many different areas, and what he's got going, and how Afghanistan could be such a problem, and the effects with Pakistan. Went to an Aspen Institute breakfast and talked there, and learned that one of the problems we've got is the Pakistanis think we'll leave Afghanistan soon if we're there, and that the Indians will come in and take Afghanistan and surround Pakistan, and they're fearful of India, and the geopolitics, which you learn in Congress on a regular basis, of the relationships between Pakistan and India, the Middle East in general. I was a lead sponsor on a letter supporting President Obama's Middle East policy, and worked on getting signatures on that to support his policy, to support a two-state solution, to support, to call on the Israelis to stop putting settlements into the West Bank, because we've got to have a peace situation there. If we don't have peace, there could be a one-state solution eventually, which the Arab population will outnumber the Jewish population, and you won't have a Jewish state. That is something the Israeli leaders know, and they need to take this opportunity to have peace and move on it now. President Obama was phenomenal in Cairo. What a great speech to the Muslim world, to the Islam world, different position for the way they view America. But that letter, which I was the lead sponsor on, and Alan Solomon wrote out and praised me for it, it supports President Obama. We had about 89 signatories. So I was working on that letter to get signatories, to support President Obama in the Middle East, to help resolve that issue with a satisfactory solution. Working on June is Black Music Month in America. I'm sponsoring the resolution, which will come up in 2 weeks, on Black Music Month, honor not only Stax and Soulsville and High Records here in Memphis, but Motown, which is Chairman Conyers, and Charlie Parker, because of Emmanuel Cleaver, but because they deserve recognition as well, and all the musicians. And working on a resolution on infant mortality, and that's a place we've worked strongly, and we think we've got our 100 signatures we needed. So people say, oh, aren't there more important things to work on? I am a multitasker, and I work on lots of issues at one time and never stop.
You know, I know, but did you not talk with Mrs. Obama?
Talked to Michelle Obama in the White House about the problem we have with infant mortality. Got a response from her and encouraged her to get involved in helping this area and the country, but this area with a pilot project. So we're about out of time. Time's always short. But
I hate that.
Yeah, it is.
I want to ask you about the straight rail system.
And we're working on that too, and it's a project for this week. I've already talked to Terrence, trying to get the Memphis to Little Rock high-speed rail, and looking into Memphis to Nashville as well. We need to be a part of that, see where it stands. We'll get with the Secretary LaHood, who was one of my co-House members in the 110th Congress, and we'll get a meeting with him. Randy, thank you for your great work. I hear it everywhere I go. People love you. I love you. You do a great job for the people of the 9th District.
Appreciate it very, very much.
I'm Steve Cohen. I've been here with my partner, Randy Wade, District Director in the 9th Congressional District. Appreciate the opportunity to represent you in Congress, District 9. That's a little report on what's going on. Thank you for watching Congressional Report.
I always knew I was going to college. I heard about federal student aid at church. What would I tell other kids? Don't give up on college because of money. My name is Eric. I'm going to study sports medicine. I'm going to be all right.